Today, we're going to mess with your head a little bit.
I am so ready for this. I'm the resident expert here to help unpack today's topic, and I have to say, it is a wild ride.
It really is. We've got this massive stack of research and a really fascinating source text titled Between Thought and Word. And honestly, it sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole.
Oh, I completely understand why. The material is pretty dense, but the core ideas are mind-bending.
Yeah, so I want to start by asking you, the listener, a question. It sounds deceptively simple, but I want you to really try it before you answer. Can you think without language?
It's the kind of question that just, stops you in your tracks because the immediate gut instinct is to say, well, of course I can.
Right. I actually tried this on the drive-in today. I tried to plan my morning without using words, and I lasted about 3 seconds before my brain shouted, "This is really hard."
You can't help it.
No. So I want everyone listening right now to just pause for a second. Listen to the inside of your head. You have that inner voice, right? That running commentary. It's narrating your day. It's judging my voice. It's making a grocery list. It is talking.
Right. And that voice is likely speaking English or Spanish or Japanese.
Whatever your native tongue is.
Exactly. It's using grammar, syntax, and vocabulary. And most importantly, it feels like you.
That's the kicker right there. It feels like me. But here is the core conflict we really need to unpack today. Is that voice actually you thinking? Or is that voice just a translator?
Is it just the PR guy reading a press release?
Yes. A press release for thoughts that already happened in the dark.
That is the central tension in the material we are looking at today. The research posits a really provocative idea. Thoughts exist before words.
Which is, it's huge.
It suggests that the words we hear in our heads are just a post hoc attempt to catch something fleeting, something that has already occurred in the cognitive architecture of the brain before the language center even lit up.
Which is kind of terrifying if you think about it. It means we are always a split second behind our own brains.
Just a little delayed.
Yeah. But we have a mission today. We are going to explore this relationship between the raw thought and the packaged word. And to do that, we have to go back to the beginning, before you knew any words at all.
We have to talk about the pre-verbal mind. And the best example of this, the one the research highlights as a primary case study, is babies.
Babies, the ultimate test subjects. Now, I am going to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Because obviously babies do things, they cry, they reach for stuff. But is that actually thinking? Or is that just biological reflex, like a plant turning toward the sun?
That is the classic counter-argument, but the literature is pretty clear on this. It is definitely thinking. If you look at studies regarding object permanence or violation of expectation, you see complex processing.
Violation of expectation. That's where they show a baby something impossible, right?
Exactly. If you roll a ball behind a screen and then remove the screen and the ball is gone, a pre-verbal infant will stare at that empty space significantly longer than if the ball was there.
Because they know something is wrong.
They are confused, yes.
So even without the word ball or gravity or physics, they have a physics engine running in their head. They ran a simulation, the reality didn't match the simulation, and they flagged an error.
Precisely. That is a thought process. And it goes beyond just physics. It goes into social strategy. The text points out, with a bit of humor actually, that babies are master manipulators.
Oh, totally. Ask any parent. They know exactly which cry gets the milk and which cry gets the hug.
Right, but think about the cognitive load required for that. That is a strategic decision based on causality. If I do X, the giant human does Y.
If I do Z, the giant human does Q.
Yes. That is a conditional algorithm running on the hardware of the brain, and it is happening long before the software of language is installed.
I love that distinction. Hardware versus software. The source uses this analogy of an operating system upgrade.
It's a really great way to visualize it. Think of the pre-verbal brain as running on raw BIOS, or a very basic DOS system. The machinery is working.
The processor is humming along.
The brain is making connections and solving problems.
It's clunky.
It is severely limited in its interface, but when you learn language, it's like installing a high-end graphics card or a new, slick user interface plugin. Suddenly, everything becomes sharper.
You can categorize things.
You can file them away, and most importantly, you can export them to other people.
So language is like the 4K texture pack for reality. The geometry was always there, the ball, the mom, the hunger. But now we can see the details, label them, and talk about them.
Exactly. But there is a catch, and this is where the linguists and cognitive scientists urge us to look at the flip side.
The dark side of the upgrade.
Right. If language is an upgrade that sharpens reality, it is also a system that defines the boundaries of reality.
And this is where we get into the really trippy stuff for me.
Yeah.
Because if language shapes how we think, it necessarily limits how we think.
This is essentially the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, also known as linguistic relativity. The idea isn't just that language describes the world, but that it effectively renders the world for us.
So if you don't have the code for it, your brain might not render it.
Exactly.
The classic example here is color. I've read about this before. There are cultures where the language doesn't distinguish between blue and green in the way English does.
Correct. They might have a single term, let's call it GRU, that covers the entire spectrum of blue and green. Now, you might think, okay, they just use one word, but they still see the difference.
But the research suggests that they actually struggle to see it.
They do. When shown a color wheel, speakers of these languages take significantly longer to identify the boundary between a blue swatch and a green swatch.
Wow.
It's not just that they lack the label, it's like their brain doesn't bother to draw the sharp line because the software doesn't demand it.
That is wild. It's like the brain is lazy. It uses the word blue as a bucket.
Yeah.
If the visual data fits in the bucket, it chucks it in there and moves on.
And if you don't have the bucket, that data just sort of floats around in the void.
A semantic void. And this applies to way more than just color. Think about emotions.
The concept of unborn thoughts.
Yes, this part of the deep dive really resonated with me.
It poses such a profound question. What complex emotional states have you felt, but let's slip away, simply because English doesn't have a container for them?
It's like when you feel that weird mix of nostalgia, regret, and, I don't know, hunger. And because you can't say, I am feeling this specific thing, the feeling just dissipates. It washes over you and leaves.
Exactly. But if you have a word, like the German schadenfreude, which is joy at another's misfortune,
Right.
or the Portuguese saudade, a specific type of longing for something that might never return, if you have that word, you can grab that feeling.
You can pin it to the corkboard of your mind and examine it. You can keep it.
It's like we can only keep what we can label. Without the label, it's just static. It's just noise.
And that leads us to a really interesting modern parallel. We are talking about minds without language, and we actually have a perfect control group for this experiment living on our servers right now.
Artificial intelligence.
Right. We are living in the age of the LLM, large language models. And it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that because ChatGPT talks to us in English, it thinks in English.
That is a massive misconception. We tend to anthropomorphize these models. We imagine a little homunculus inside the computer writing sentences.
But the source material reminds us that this isn't true at all.
Not even close.
So unpack that for us. If it is not thinking in English, what is it doing?
It is processing massive amounts of data in what is called high-dimensional vector space. It is looking at the mathematical relationships between concepts. King minus man plus woman equals queen.
That isn't a linguistic sentence to the AI?
No, it is a vector equation.
The text had that poetic phrase. It said, AI dreams in math.
Dreaming in math is a perfect description. It processes patterns, probabilities, and associations. English or French or Python code, that is just the output layer.
That is the export format.
Exactly. So English is just the UI. It's the user interface for the human.
The actual intelligence, the connection making, the pattern recognition happens in a completely nonverbal mathematical space.
Yes. Which brings us back to our original point about babies. If the most advanced synthetic minds on the planet don't use words to process info.
And babies don't use words to process info.
Right. It reinforces the idea that words are optional for raw computing power.
Raw computing, yes. You can solve a puzzle without words. You can navigate a maze without words.
But, and this is a critical distinction, while raw processing doesn't need words, civilization does.
This is where the outline pivot really got me, because we can agree that a human could survive without language. But the text proposes a thought experiment. What happens to humanity as a species if we never invented language?
Let's walk through it. Imagine a world where humans have the same big brains, the same opposable thumbs, the same social instincts.
But no speech.
No speech, no writing, no cave drawings.
It is a totally silent world.
So you, as an individual, could still be brilliant. You could figure out that if you hit a nut with a specific type of rock, it cracks open. You could learn to build a shelter.
And if I see you doing that, I can copy you.
Yeah.
Mirror neurons, right? I see you crack the nut, I crack the nut.
You can copy, yes, but you cannot understand the rationale. You can't tell me, hey, don't use the slate rock, it shatters. Use the granite rock.
You can't explain the nuance.
And most importantly, when you die, your internal library of knowledge burns down with you.
That is the Library of Alexandria problem. Every time an elder dies, the tribe resets to zero.
We call this the failure of cumulative culture or the ratchet effect. Language acts as a ratchet. It holds a piece of information in place so the next generation can build on top of it.
Without language, the ratchet slips. So civilization becomes an endless loop of rediscovery. We would be stuck in a permanent state of déjà vu. We would invent the wheel, forget it, and invent it again 1,000 years later.
No science, no Shakespeare, no history books. We would be smart animals, but we wouldn't be a civilization. We are effectively standing on a pile of words that our ancestors stacked up for us.
But the source throws a curveball here that I found really provocative. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, that world would be happier.
It is a tempting thought, isn't it?
I mean, look at social media. Look at the news. No hate speech, no demagogues riling up crowds with rhetoric, no lying politicians, no misunderstandings because of a text message tone.
Just pure physical reality.
It sounds peaceful. It's just a kind of emotional purity.
But the expert analysis here, and I have to agree, counters that while we might lose the hate, we would also lose the empathy.
Wait, really? I feel like empathy is a gut thing. I see someone crying, I feel bad. I don't need a sentence for that.
You can feel sympathy or emotional contagion. You can mirror their distress. But deep empathy, the kind where I understand your complex internal motivations, your history, your specific fears regarding the future.
Yeah, that requires narrative.
It absolutely does.
That is a good point. Without words, I just know you were sad. With words, I know you were sad because you lost your grandmother's ring, which was the last connection to your heritage.
Exactly. That context creates a bridge. Empathy isn't just feeling. It is understanding someone else's internal world through the medium of words.
Without that medium, we are islands. We might be happy islands, but we are isolated islands.
Okay, so language is the bridge.
But let's be honest, it is a rickety bridge. We misunderstand each other constantly. So let's swing the pendulum all the way to the other side. We have talked about a world with no language. Now let's talk about the perfect language paradox.
This is the second scenario the research asks us to consider. Imagine a world where language isn't an obstacle. It is 100% efficient.
So no abstraction, no vagueness. If I say, I am sad, you know exactly, with perfect precision, the specific flavor of sadness I am feeling.
Think of it like a computer code. When one computer sends a file to another, there is no ambiguity. It is a perfect replica. This scenario imagines human communication working the exact same way.
Telepathy, essentially.
Yes.
That sounds incredibly efficient. We would get so much work done. No more, this meeting could have been an email.
We would be incredibly efficient. But the source poses a philosophical question. Would that make us wiser? Or would it just make us incredibly lonely?
Lonely. But I thought the problem with language was that we are misunderstood. If we are perfectly understood, shouldn't we be less lonely?
You would think so.
Yeah.
But let's bring in a technical concept here. Lossy compression.
Okay, like a JPEG image.
Exactly. Language is a compression algorithm. When I have a thought, which is this rich, complex, multisensory swirl in my brain, and I try to tell you about it, I have to compress it into these tiny little sound packets called words.
A huge amount of data is lost in that compression.
Yes.
So I am sending you a low-res thumbnail of my high-res thought.
And because it is low res, you have to do work to decompress it. You have to interpret, guess, read my body language, and fill in the blanks.
And the source argues that this work, this guessing game, is actually the good part.
It argues that the friction is the point. The struggle to understand one another, the what did she mean by that, the effort we put into decoding each other. That effort is the glue of human connection.
Whoa. So if we had perfect transmission, there is no interaction. There is just data transfer.
Precisely. If I instantly downloaded my entire mental state into your brain, we aren't conversing. We are just syncing hard drives.
But if I have to fumble for words and you have to listen actively and interpret, we are engaging in a dance. We are trying to bridge the gap.
We are trying to reach each other.
That makes me think about art. Poetry, specifically. Or lyrics. Well, poetry exists because words fail. If we had a perfect word for everything, we wouldn't need metaphors. We wouldn't need to say my love is like a red, red rose. We would just say I am experiencing love type 4B and be done with it.
That is a sterile world. The distance between what we feel and what we can say is exactly where art is born. We paint, we write songs, we create films because standard language isn't enough.
We are trying to communicate the incommunicable.
Yes.
So the conclusion here is that inefficient language might actually be the most human thing we have. Our inability to perfectly describe our lives is what drives us to create things that try to describe them.
It is a beautiful paradox. We build civilization with language, but we build meaning in the gaps where language fails.
We build meaning in the gaps.
Yeah.
That is going to stick with me. It connects back to the inner voice we started with.
Right. Let's bring it back home. We started by asking the listener to hear that voice in their head.
And now that we have explored the pre-verbal mind, the limits of vocabulary, the math of AI, and the nature of poetry, that voice feels a little different to me now.
It should. You should realize that the voice is an echo.
An echo.
Yes. The research makes this point vividly in the conclusion. The words you hear in your mind are the echo, not the sound.
The real thinking, the sound, happens underneath, in the dark, before the words form.
The words are just the subtitles for the movie playing in your brain.
That is a perfect analogy. We are obsessing over the subtitles, but the action is happening on the screen whether we read them or not.
And this raises a final, slightly provocative question for our listeners to take with them.
Yeah, the source leaves us with a bit of a twist. Next time your mind is chattering away, next time you are rehearsing an argument in the shower, or worrying about a meeting, stop and ask yourself, who is speaking and who is listening?
Think about that. If you are the one listening to the voice, then you cannot be the voice itself. You are the awareness behind it.
That is getting into some deep meditation territory. But it is true. We are the thing that is aware of the words, not the words themselves.
And that suggests that true intelligence, true consciousness, isn't about having the best vocabulary. It isn't in the words we use. It is in knowing when to step beyond them. It is in recognizing that the map is not the territory.
I think that is the perfect place to leave it. We spend our whole lives learning to talk. Maybe the next step is learning to listen to the silence underneath it all.
A worthy goal.
So, to everyone listening, thank you for taking this deep dive with us. I hope your inner voice has some interesting new things to talk about today. And remember,
What are
whatever language you're thinking in right now, it's older than words. See you next time.